interviewing top talent in movies, television, sports, and music, leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts. 30 countries out of New York, Manchester, Los Angeles. As a mentor, life and career coach, I help athletes, actors, and people of all walks of life solve the problems they face by introducing balance and routines that would otherwise leave them stuck and overthinking, paralyzed, unable to reach their goals. They look for engaging, rewarding lives, and I think they deserve that. Today, I invite you to join me on my radio show to learn from my guests and I how you can be more resilient and strong. I empower people who struggle with confusion or feel stuck in soulless, non-fulfilling situations. I help them find calm and claim their authentic self in their career path or personal life so they can live to their fullest potential. As a motivational speaker for businesses, schools, resorts, and communities, I speak on topics of achieving success and living a mentally healthy lifestyle, featuring topics from my Power My Life program within my revolutionary Impact, Influence, and Income Academy. I inspire the world as a radio journalist, author, life coach, career coach, resilience expert, mental health advocate, and most recently as a society writer for Transatlantic Today magazine. So happy that you joined me. Let's get rolling. You don't just have to go through it. You can grow through it. And thank you for joining Resilient You. On our show, we have guests that come on each week to talk about the topics of resiliency. And we broadcast on Power 98.5 in over 300 countries. We have a special guest today. He's a songwriter and singer from the UK, and his name is Chris Ostler. Chris, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Alicia.
Yes, we are so pleased to have you. You have some music out there that the world is waiting for. I love the different sound and stylings that you bring. So thank you for that. We'll get into it. But why don't you tell listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so as you said, I'm based in the UK. I'm a singer-songwriter and solo artist. I'm based in the southwest, so bottom left-hand corner of the United Kingdom. I'm 33 years old, and I've had to have several jobs over the past 10 years or so to get to a point where I'm doing music full-time, working-wise and things. So writing music is definitely the biggest thing I love to do. I love to be able to compose different melodies, lyrics, intertwine different rhythms and sounds to really bring out the song lyrics and meanings in the songs, so that people can really feel those connections to some experiences I've had and some others that I've sort of taken from here, there, and everywhere, really.
Beautiful. And that's what we love about music, right? We have a connection and it inspires us or brings a feeling, which can really help when you're dealing with something or just you want to have a good day, right? So I go out and the first thing I do when I work with my clients as well, the same thing, kind of think about what it is you want to do for that day. Are you feeling ambitious? Do you want to get something done? Or do you want to be calm and have peace? So the songs have a beat and a melody. And believe it or not, some of the rhythms and beats of music align directly with the same, the thing that we process when we have stress. So a lot of times psychologically, that's how the music will interpret it. It's on the same line of when we are dealing with a stressful situation. So that's behind the scenes. But now you have a song out. Let me ask you about that, because I know our listeners will be interested in hearing the song that you have out. Funk in the Trunk is one of them, right? So tell us about that song in particular. How did that come about?
So Funk in the Trunk kind of came about in a. It's taken a while to sort of get it all together as it is and get it out there. It's probably about almost taking a long time, even pre-COVID, getting everything sorted with it. But the way it kind of came about is in a nutshell, my social history has found itself in positions where I'm going to certain social events or parties and things like that. And sometimes when you're trying to necessarily fit into the right kind of place, so that you can just, be part of the experience with everybody else, it can be very tricky sometimes. So, or it might not be quite right, whether it fits in with how you want to be or expressing yourself. And sometimes, some people will see it as frowned upon in a weird way. So Funk in the Trunk really is about making your own party without any restrictions. Anyone can be who they want to be, whatever the background, whatever the age or the gender, or how they identify themselves. You can make your own party and bring that special, unique thing that is you, as well as all the lovely things that are about you and the personalities that all kind of bounce off each other's, all the colors you want in your party of rainbows and celebrations. It's your event. You can enjoy it, and it's uncharacterized, so to speak.
Wonderful. Well, that's, we definitely need that today with everything everyone has going on, and this message, this collective global message that is happening in the world. One of the things about this song I like is it's kind of like a blend of pop and rock and funk, and it just has like a nice melody, and again, there's breaks in there and the drums, like it's great. Now, my my favorite part, well, my favorite part is probably the part where uh I don't know, near the middle or end of the song, where it says, are you ready? We're going to take this party. And it lifts you up. It gets you motivated. It gets you moving. I just love that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, it's nice that we've been having lots of great feedbacks from different people, including yourself as well, with different responses, which is amazing. Because with this kind of song, and wherever you have this kind of party, you don't have to feel that you need to fit in. You just will fit in. It's an assurance that you can be whoever you want to be. It's and with the different responses that we've been having, it's nice that people have related to different sections in their own way and connected to them. So we definitely wanted to speak to as many different people as possible, whoever you are, wherever you're from.
Yeah, well, yeah. And there, people can find you. Let's talk about that, because you have a website and you have a presence out online on social media.
Sure. Mm.
How can listeners find you?
Well, first thing here to do, if you've never heard of me before with the Chris Ostler, I mean, I'd always say double check the spelling, because it's always easy to misspell something on Google nowadays. But yeah, you can find me through my main website, which is chrisostler.co.uk. But you can also find me through my Facebook page at Chris Ostler Music. There's also an Instagram, which is Chris Ostler Music as well. Twitter at Chris Ostler Tune. And we've even just started experimenting with the TikTok channel. So that's definitely on the rise as well. And yeah, just making sure that Ostler is spelled Ostler, because it's one of those ones where as we said before, the T sometimes gets lost.
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed you have a wealth of information, and you have photos, there's media out there, there's different things.
Hmm.
People can really dig in and learn about you. So that's great. Thank you so much. You've really been busy. You've been,
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think we're living in a very digital age, aren't we? With there's a whole era where lots of people will still read and see things in the paper, but we're still living in a very digital evolution where people want to see video, they want to see images, as well as just text, and they want to obviously keep getting that sort of that feed of all this content, so to speak. So we definitely came up with trying to make a good music video to try and capture people's attention and things with the robots, and really giving a bit of a surprise value to it. So it's definitely trying to get it out to YouTube and all these other online sites, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, wherever you can. We're definitely trying to make sure we get as many different channels of avenue to getting it seen to you guys.
Great, great. Well, this interview will be out on Apple Music, so people will hear it there as well. Now, let me just back up a minute. So you have obviously gotten yourself to a certain point in life, and I'm sure you've had to be resilient along the way. Now, in order to be resilient, which is bouncing back from things that may not go your way, what kind of, let me ask you about personally, Chris Ostler. I want to ask you about autism. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, as in, do you mean like when it started for me, or as in, do you mean like what it actually is, so to speak? Is that which do you mean by that? Just so I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't know if you have, if it's something that's public out there to all your listeners, but can you share a little detail on?
Yeah, no, that's fair play. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. So my relationship with autism, or Asperger's syndrome, as it's sometimes known as well, is that I've had this diagnosis from quite a young age through the fortunate circumstance of my mom being in the right place at the right time, and having someone look at me at a younger age, and with the processes of the system, so to speak, that we have in the UK, I've been I've found myself to be fortunate to have support in order to help with my autism. My particular difficulties that affect me still on a day-to-day basis is a mix of social, language, and communication difficulties. Now, with everybody, it definitely affects every single person in a different way. But for those who don't have autism or things, to understand what is it in a weird way that links us, or how we differ, it's almost like if you put your hands together and then link all your fingertips together, and if you imagine that this is the way that your brain is thinking, you've got thumb to thumb, index to index, pinky to pinky. And this could be like, let's say, just a generalization of, your thought processing of how people think. And all these different fingertips are the different senses and the different ways that our brain thinks together. Now, if you want to take someone potentially who might be autistic, or, maybe even just thinks in a different way to you, this could be completely anyone, mind you, whether they have autism or not. If you want to choose a different part of your finger and link it to a different part of your hand, so you're almost like you're making a completely different shape. And then you have this structure with your hand where your pinky finger on either side might not be connected, but then your index is connected to a middle bit of your middle finger. It's almost like these different things are connected in different ways. These cues, these senses are, make us see or hear or interact things differently. And the way that it's kind of how this impacts me, for example. So one of my things is that sometimes when I play certain music, I see colors visually, and I get like tense through, and it's almost like looking through a different pair of lenses, which is really peculiar to some people when they're hearing this, But, some other people will get, like a heightened sense of, they become quite intelligent, or a heightened sense of listening. Sometimes for me, I can, I'm quite sensitive to certain textures. So, I modify sometimes what I eat. It could be completely physically and mentally affecting somebody, whoever you are. And, in a completely different way. Some people will have different hair color, obviously, which was a physical appearance, but, how we interact with things is completely modified by, this different way of behaving or interacting and talking to people. So yeah, that's the simplest way I can try and put it in a weird way.
Yeah, so that's great to know. So anybody who has not yet encountered, people, especially now in their adult life, that have Asperger's or autism on the spectrum. It's really nice to hear that, Chris. Thank you so much for opening up.
No
Now,
worries. Yeah.
is it is it something that affects you? Like, it sounds like you're managing it well. Am I right?
Yeah, there's definitely a I like to think that because of all the support that I've received from my friends and my family, and the discipline of kind of almost training yourself to cope with the differences of, some sensory situations have been quite intense over the past, my entire life, you could say.
Mm.
There have been ways to try and learn how best to deal with certain situations. So you could say you kind of get into a rhythm of, applying some protocols or certain things that you do in certain situations to kind of, get yourself excused, or if you need to take an aside to, have a bit of a breather, then maybe come back to it and things. These are all things that I've experienced in my own particular adulthood and childhood as well. But as long as I know that, with an optimistic view of knowing that things at the end of the day will be okay, I've got a reason to continue to be optimistic. Things will always be different. There will never always be a situation that's recreated, but
Mm.
the more times I kind of push myself into a slightly uncomfortable zone of, social events or different occasions where I've got to be part of, and I get a bit nervous or worried or anxious about them, it becomes a little bit easier over time, and you do develop a bit of confidence with that. So, yeah, it's I think one of them, for example, is when you're sort of going on stage. Like, I've now gone on stage hundreds and thousands of times now, and from doing that, I definitely feel a greater amount of confidence
Mm.
going on stage, and you get a bit less nervous, but I still get nervous, and I think it's still good to be nervous about things, but having more frequency of getting into slightly more uncomfortable situations and getting with that discipline, you can learn to cope with it. You can get there. You can do anything you want to. You just got to keep putting your mind to it and keep driving for it.
Yeah, now you just said a whole lot right there. You basically just that's like 50% of what I teach my clients to do. And as to my knowledge, they're not on the spectrum. But every one of us, I think, as a human being, we all have that thing where we are stuck in our comfort zone and we don't want to make the change. It's hard for us to do that, but as you say, by being optimistic, by having routines, right? You were talking about, learning things and having a rhythm to doing things and applying protocols. Like, all of that stuff is really a routine, and that's something, a useful tool that I recommend to people, because if you are more knowledgeable and you're equipped with these skill sets to be able to deal with it, imagine where you can go. You can set your sights, such as you did with music, and, move up and to hear that you're on the stage thousands of times. That's amazing. So Chris, I want to ask you about your support. You mentioned that you had good support system. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So during parts of my childhood, obviously it's a little bit easier, and every single country will have a different way of obviously how they'll go about applying support to younger kids in schools or in colleges and things like that. So when I was younger, I definitely had learning support staff that were able to help me, whether it sometimes be a one-to-one teaching assistant, or it would be sometimes a scribe to help me just write down, certain notes from classes and things like that. Just so then you can sort of focus on the session auditorially and register everything that's being said and understand it and process it. These are all very, very helpful. And if there are enough systems in the world that can obviously push for this for the majority of all the people that need it, I know, it's a bit tricky in certain situations with funding and things, but, the most they can get for it, if anyone's ever consulting on whether they should go for it, it's always worth trying, but the biggest one for me, other than the sort of the learning in the school, college side of things, the biggest one for me is family and friends. Definitely keeping them
Mhm.
close. I'm fortunate enough that my mother is pretty much a saint almost, with the sort of making sure that I was, staying on track with what I needed to do. There were times, obviously, where arguments happen, because everyone has disagreements, and it's only fair.
Mhm.
But helping me sort of channel my energy to the right direction, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to get this done, and overcoming those boundaries, those barriers. It does feel rewarding at the end of all when you've overtaken them, and then you're on to the next one. You're like, I've done this. You then have a little break, and then hit for the next goal, and just keep going high, keep going soaring into that sky wherever you can.
Yeah, wonderful. I need to interview your mother. Where do you
Yeah,
stand
I'm
for?
sure she'll be available at some point.
Good, good. Well, no, and that's so important. I'm so glad that you had that support both, in the educational system and as well at home. So not everybody has support where they might want it or expect it. So it's important to be able to be your own advocate, stay strong, reach out if you have a need because you're as good as anyone else. And I'm speaking to all the listeners out there. Just keep it in mind that that support is going to help you and you're deserving of it. So Chris, your music is like your passion of your life, right? But when you were younger, or you've worked with kids, right? You've supported kids also.
Yeah, so part of some of the work, again, going back to the upbringing thing. So there's many different avenues. I mean, obviously, you find that passion in life, for me, which was music, but, along your route as you're growing up and as you're learning about yourself, you come across many different things. Like, for me, sport was a really big one. I had a huge outside interest in doing outdoor adventure sort of things, whether it be kayaking, climbing, and mountaineering and hiking. I also took heavily in normal activized team games, with things like baseball and volleyball. I even played baseball as a child for Great Britain during about 4 years of my teenage life. So definitely was very, very passionate about that, and went to Canada quite a lot for various training sessions with higher profile agents and things like that. So, there's lots obviously to kind of throw yourself into the color of life, explore every opportunity as much as you can.
Mm,
Um, with my sort of teaching and things with other kids, my mother is also, going back to her coincidentally. She
mhm.
was a headmistress of two primary schools, and I learnt throughout my childhood how she obviously was teaching other children and what methods of how she would convey information to them, which seemed a bit more easy to understand than some of the other teachers that were around. And I kind of started trying to adopt my own style of how to talk to them in my own way, and
Oh,
just get my view or get certain learning methods, whether it be teaching them music or PE or sports and things. And I used to actually be, thanks to her, part of my job that I left was working as a teaching assistant for a primary school for 4 years in the local village I live in now. And yeah, I do miss it. I do enjoy passing on knowledge to young ones, and I do have a mindset like a child, and I think that's the best way to go, whatever age you are. Um, it's just one of those things where you feel a little bit of a connection when you can just pass on something that can mean so much to someone of the younger generation that they might be able to use in their arsenal when they grow up, if they find that they're using that later on in life. It just gives you a huge, enormous amount of self well-being, and self-value from passing that on to them.
yeah, that's right. That's amazing. Chris, you have done so much in your life. I love this. You're like my new hero. But
That's
seriously,
very kind of you, man.
yeah, to be able to give back to others, on so many levels and take your interests and your talents and be able to help children, and it really builds community, which is so important today. So all of that goodness, I think, is going to come back to you through your music. So now let's talk a little bit about your music as your greatest passion. Um, and I know I'm bouncing around all over the place, but I'm trying to.
Go right ahead. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love jumping from different things. Go right ahead.
Good, good. So your music is obviously the new thing, right? We've talked about the one song. The other song that I've heard, the Jam Jar Label. This has a chorus that is so catchy. And what's the history behind that song?
Oh, so with Jam Jar Label, so originally it was a Jam Jar Label. I remember actually writing this in the middle of a field. Actually, I was on holiday, just finishing it off, and I had kids surrounding me. It's an interesting memory. But the way that I wrote Jam Jar Label was that there was a point in life where I was old enough to understand when necessarily special needs educational coordinators and my parents, when they said, so you have got this thing that's called autism or Asperger's, that is something that it's not necessarily something that affects you in a way that's degrading or demeaning or it makes you disadvantaged in a weird way. It's more of one of those things that just makes you think a little bit differently. Um, but it's something that we put on you to try and just say that if anyone else needs to know, this is something that you have. But with Jam Jar Label, it was something that I wanted to kind of identify that you can still be whoever you want to be. You can break free and still be yourself. You don't necessarily need so much as a label to identify who you are,
Mm.
because at the end of the day, we're all going to be unique individuals. We all have our own labels as our names. I'm Christopher Mark Ostler. You are Alicia, and you're, is it Pozsony?
Pizzoni. Pizzani.
Pozsony. Sorry, trying to read that right. Everyone is a different uniqueness to themselves, but also to other people. Everyone has this individuality that makes up who they are. But when someone tries to slap a label on you, some people will, when they react to it, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't think I can do as much now because I've got this." When really, with the label, actually,
Mm.
it just makes you either think a bit differently. But sometimes I think of it as a superpower. It's like, well, I've actually got autism. What have you got? This makes me absolutely amazing. I can hear certain frequencies when I listen to a mix that makes me more sensitive to others. I have this way of hearing things that other people don't. I see tints when I hear music. These are different ways that affect me and allows me to be my own superhero in a weird way. So with the song, it allows me to kind of speak out. It's like, well, can you hear me? I'm here. I'm ready to push out into the thing that I love doing. And this is you're not going to change who I am, because this is who I want to be. No matter whatever you want to try and change me, I'm going to be whoever I choose to grow up to be.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. One of the things that you shared with me is that even though you've struggled with communication, that as a challenge, that now this music and lyrics that you write all the parts for, and they're based on your observations of life. Since you have that wide range, you have it kind of helped you to get to where you are today, right? With this
Mm.
passion, with this music, having like a rock flair and right? Is that you want
100%.
to share a little bit about that? Because that's powerful. That is really something I think that if we all listen to that concept and take it to heart, we can then translate that into something and give more greatness out into the world in our own ways.
Mm. Yeah, I think definitely throwing yourself into as much variation of life that even just interests you on the little bit. You kind of develop all these different experiences that make you a very different person. It's like, if you imagine a kid goes home one day and he asks his mom and says, my friends have said, can I join this football club, for example? And, there's then a decision where it's going to be a case of, do you do that or do you not do it? And then if these you could say forks in our paths, these will all play a part in terms of how the environment shapes us, affects us, what we subject to, and we absorb so much, even though we just think, oh, I'm going out to play a football game, or I'm going to go do some training, or I'm just going to go see my friends, when
Mm.
that's one path to take. But then you're throwing yourself into, there's a physicality of it, there's the emotion of it, there's the competitiveness of it. You're taking all these other things from it. On the other hand, if you didn't choose to do it, for example, you might do something completely different, no matter what it is. But as long as it's something that you enjoy, all the passions in life are the things that you find when you're older, that they're the things that you end up sticking to. For me, music has been something I've always kept coming back to at later stages, even through like doing baseball and outdoor adventuring and all these other amazing things that I still do. But music for me was the thing that spoke out the most, and it really, really pushed into, a career for me. All these experiences, we value all these different entities of what when we were subject to them, whether it be the start of them or the finish of them. We've taken all these different colors, we've made our own, color of life. And I'm proud to say that music is, the dominant color of my life, or it certainly is right now. And it has been for a very long while. And I hope it continues to be like that. Because, for anyone else who's doing music full time and writing music, it's a fun industry to be part of.
Yeah, right, right. Now, you mentioned the robot. So the robot you say is a cross between um, Iron Man and Saturday Night Fever?
Yeah, so we had a fun review actually that we've taken that from one of our press clippings. It was which was a really lovely analogy. We hadn't actually thought of it. It was so the robot itself is basically just something to demonstrate to others that you can simply assemble something at home, make it yourself, and this is the thing that who you are. This is the thing that makes up you, and you can go out and have a good time wearing it. With the going back to the song and making your own party and making your own environment, you can wear whatever you want. There's a huge fashion industry nowadays, and I like to think my fashion tastes are probably a little bit limited compared to others, but through the use of cardboard, glue, gaffer tape, and some window tinting equipment, I have made this robot suit that is almost like, in one way, a way that I can express myself and just go out, enjoy, and be who I, feel comfortable with, and dancing, whatever silly dance or good dancing that I do. I've not trained too much in dancing, but it allows you to kind of stick to being who you'd like to be, and in some other ways, wearing what you feel it makes you comfortable in a weird way. Is also armor, because you're protecting yourself from all the people that say, "Oh, you can't dress like that. That's not really the sort of thing you should really be wearing," or that just seems a bit strange on the peculiar. Don't think
Hmm.
it's needed for this kind of thing. It's like, well, actually, at my party, you can come whatever dressed as whatever you want, just as long as you're wearing something in it. Just as long as you feel good.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And as we go through the stages of our lives, right, we might change and have different things we might wear or want to wear. And, I know myself, I was always a shy person. And so I always looked at people wearing prints or, bright colors and mixing different styles and things. And as I got into a group, so I liked heavy metal back in the day when I was younger. And
Oh,
so they were, all with the black and jean jackets and everything. It was like, denim and black. That's all you needed. But, then as I changed and grew, people later in life, when I became a professional, for example, you know, you wouldn't know that by a person. Like, what were you like when you were younger? So I'd love to see, though, that today people can be more of who they are. And with songs like this to come out and help them, it does. It's a nice reminder that, so if you see Chris out and about, you can definitely ask him about the robot.
Definitely, we've definitely done a few things as a sort of like funny little teasers. We had a couple of gigs the last summer, and just as a sort of sort of pilot test of the outfit, we have actually been to one or two different sort of spot locations where I've had a music event to play at, but I've just sort of gone for a walk around it wearing the robot suit just to kind of see if people would react to it and just see how. And people thought I ended up being a tourist attraction, that I worked for example, we have a place called Land's End, which is the furthest point in the country in the UK, where it's basically just the furthest southern point ever. And we've kind of monumented that area, and they hold a fireworks event in the summer, and I had a gig down there, and just ended up, why not? We just walk around the place and just see how people react, what their reactions will be, and ended up taking loads of photos with people. So it was just like, okay, yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, I would love that, to be at a show venue waiting for you to perform and all of a sudden see the robot come out. That would be great. Uh, so yeah, so what else, Chris? What is coming up next? I know you have releases coming out over the next few months.
Mm. 100%. Yeah, we have got some exciting new singles coming your way. We've got one that is coming out on the 1st of September. We have also got a localized an event to go with that in the city of Exeter in the UK, which is called the Sun and the Moon. So that is a single going to be released on the 1st of September. And then on the I think it is the 10th of October. So that's World Mental Health Day, I believe. We have got another song which is called Anxious Boy, and that one's quite a big push for us because I've written that song because it's specifically trying to target all the people that do get very, very anxious, a bit more than regular, and maybe even on a daily basis, to let them know that, as long as you keep your friends and family close, all the things that make us anxious, or whether they barrier us from doing certain things and stop us from doing things, with that support that we get from all the people who are in our life, we can overcome those barriers. We can get past them, and we can keep moving forward. It's like the Rocky Balboa quote. It's not about how many hits you give in life, it's how many you can take and then keep moving forward. It's we can grow into these amazing people as long as we just keep walking forward, keep striving for the things. And as much as we can get anxious about all big things and little things, and there's some things that will knock us right to the floor, but as long as we can find the strength to get back up again, we can get out there. So that's Anxious Boy coming out on the 10th of October. And then we are looking at a potential date in November where we are going to be releasing a physical EP, which will have the 3 singles, Funk in the Trunk, Sun and the Moon, and also Anxious Boy, all on this physical CD that our fans can come and get and have their own physical copy as well. So that, as long as with other new tracks that we are releasing at the time, so that will be about 7 tracks, I think. So yeah, lots of fun things in the pipeline.
Wonderful. Now, how about playing out? Are you playing out anywhere?
Yeah, so the best place for taking into where I'm going to be playing the next things will be going to my Facebook page or my website, and you can see a list of all the dates of where I'm playing, whether it be solo and acoustic, me on my own, whether I'm doing more originals or more covers, because sometimes I do a mix of both. We're also doing a few different festivals and things over the summer. Still some to go, a bit more localized in the UK, in the Devon area, in the Devon County. But we have done some of the bigger festivals like Ocean Fest already, which we had a great fun time at. So, yeah, we're just really basically pushing ourselves further as much as we can. If anyone's listening that wants to grab us for their festival, please do get in touch with us, because we just want to get out and play, and you won't find anyone as driven as I am. Definitely trying to
Mhm.
get out there for sure.
Yeah. So Chris Ostler and Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about your the people in your band? I always
Yeah,
forget to ask about that, and I love the band members. You couldn't do what you do without each and every one. So, I want to give you a chance if you'd like to talk about them a little.
yeah. So the usual lineup. I have a sort of a first call lineup of some really dedicated musicians, but just in case for whatever reason, because everyone's got a different life of their own, and I've got to respect that. So sometimes I fling in the usual deck, but they're all in that pool of good friends and good players that I've had the fortune of meeting over the years, and so to talk a little bit about them. Whether I bring them to different parts of the UK or bringing them overseas and things. The players themselves, they are going to be people like George Watts, who's a very young, talented individual in his early 20s in the local area around here. A rhythm guitarist called Fintan May, who is a very, very talented guitarist in his own right as well. And both of them, you put them together, they are a really nice powerhouse of electric guitar sounds, and they work really well bouncing ideas off each other. They're great fun to work with. Bass wise, there's an amazing individual called Joseph Lees, who has played for a few other celebrities in the past as well. I think he even played a depth gig for Amelia Sande at the O2 Arena in London. So I'm fortunate enough to have some very, very world-class players playing for me as well. My drummer is a guy called Matt Kitchener, who is he's like a really good older brother that I look up to, and some of his experience and his wisdom is always assuring. I'm also going to throw out another name. There's a guy called Ryan Chappell who just comes to play bass with us a couple of times, but I know he tours a little bit with the Formula E kind of things, going all around the world and doing all those sort of things. There's so many people to kind of reference, but we'll be here all day if I keep talking about them all.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's amazing. But I just want to give you a chance to do that, and give shout outs to the people that made it happen with you.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, so if you had to share some advice or some wisdom that you've learned along the way, um, is there anything else that you might say to people much like yourself?
Oh, yeah. I think there's definitely some bits of advice I could give. So we'll put it in some simple cases of let's say we'll put three things for people if they are in a situation that they are a bit nervous about and things. The three things I would say is number one is breathe. Always find a bit of time to breathe and just focus and re-centralize yourself, or even reboot yourself. Breathing is definitely one thing that I've had to learn, not just as a vocalist, but also just to help in my own personal life. And without it, I'd be dead, quite literally. Number two is always ask for help. Don't be afraid of asking for help. There's no such thing as stupid questions. Only stupid answers, but stupid questions is not a thing, because at the end of the day, we all communicate, we all understand things in very different ways, and I think whoever you are, we even sometimes get the wrong end of the stick. So it's very easy to look at a situation and think, oh, is it like this? And then turns out you've not got the situation right at all. So, okay, we'll just
Mhm.
backtrack. And then hopefully someone there will be able to explain things. So just don't ever be scared about asking for help, because it's not something to be ashamed of. It's just a different way of just saying, I didn't quite understand that. Can you explain that a bit more? Or have I understood it correctly? So, yeah, just always ask for help. We can't do it alone. And number three is to just keep being yourself, because, that self, just always be yourself, because the way that you are, the way that you learn, and the way that you impact on life is always going to be different to how other people will be. You sometimes don't realize how amazing and special each and every single one of you are. So really learning to grow into your own person And then later on in life, you see how much of an awesome person you are. Be thankful for the person that you have become, because honestly, no one else has become you. No one else has had to go through the exact things that you have done yourself. Everyone is going to be different for a reason, and everyone has a way of connecting, and sometimes they have events that are relatable, but put all the things, all those building blocks of the experience and lessons and trauma and things that you've had to struggle with over the years, and all the amazing things combined with that makes you to be that amazing person that you are, and how unique you are in your own right. So yeah, that's number 3. Always be yourself.
And resilient. Don't forget all of that you said,
Yes.
all those experiences.
Let's
And
make it 4 then, shall we? Yeah, and be resilient. Be resilient. Make sure that you continue to still be just yourself, and don't feel that you have to change for absolutely anybody. Take on praise from other people, because that sometimes it's very hard to let that sink in, and just keep plowing on.
yeah, that's a good point too. If you're people sometimes don't want to accept praise or accept they're good at one thing if they're trying to shoot for being good at something else, or sometimes you look at someone else and you want what they have, that passion or that thing they're good at, talents, whatever. And then you realize that, you have your own goodness. So if you can be accepting of yourself, you are amazing, you're special, you have your own impacts on the world. And that's really going to help you to do well and feel better, right? As you go through life, because we're always going to have challenges. We're always going to get knocked down or get knocked down a peg, right? And it's sometimes hard to bounce back, but if you stay focused, you can definitely remember, like Chris has suggested, to breathe and focus and reboot yourself whenever you need to. It can be a quick thing, just taking deep breaths. You can do a minute of mindfulness. There's different things, resources online. You can even watch a funny animal video. Like that will kind of reset yourself.
It works. It really does.
But yeah, it's very helpful. So keep in mind, you can always be resilient. You can be yourself. If you see Chris at the show, definitely hit him up, ask him about the robot. Keep in mind, he's got new songs coming out in September, The Sun and the Moon, and then an event that he has in Exeter. There's also on World Mental Health Day, October 10th, Anxious Boy, a song coming out for anyone who's facing anxiousness in their days. It'll help you to bounce back and keep moving forward. If you are interested, you can get the physical EP that he'll have coming out later this year in November. So just keep in mind, Chris Ostler, he has the new tune out. So yeah, Chris Ostler. And Chris, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Alicia. And if anyone's out there listening, feel free to get in touch. It's nice to say hi.